And as Ed was just saying, Democrats may be crying foul, but will this appeasement label stick to Obama? We want to ask tonight's panel of top political observers. Tara Wall is deputy editorial page editor for the conservative-leaning Washington Times and a former senior advisor to the Republican National Committee. Ed Schultz hosts a nationally syndicated radio show, and he leans to the liberal side, but hasn't endorsed a presidential candidate yet. And Michael Crowley is senior editor for the left-leaning New Republic. Okay, now that we've gotten everybody sort of lean in there, I'm going to start with you, Tara. You're in the studio with me. We just heard from all these Democrats who are pretty outraged, clearly. Here's the quote from Rahm Emanuel, congressman today, who said, "The tradition has always been that when a U.S. president is overseas, partisan politics stops at the water's edge." Does he have a fair point?
You know, you can tell you've really hit a nerve when all the Democrats come out with their fangs and their claws out. I've got to tell you, I mean, there's something really there. And for Barack Obama, quite frankly, to respond the way he did. First of all, I think, look, the president made very legitimate issues. He raised very legitimate issues in a very timely manner, and he spoke in a very broad manner. He could have been speaking to anyone from, you know, President Carter, who's met with Hamas, to and including Barack Obama, certainly.
But you don't think he was inserting himself in the campaign, per se?
Not necessarily. I think it's wholly legitimate. I mean, these issues he's raised before. It's not the first time we haven't heard this from President Bush. And I think, again, it is a legitimate issue, and it's worth raising, particularly when Barack Obama himself has said he would sit down and meet with Ahmadinejad, who is no friend, obviously, to Israel. He has his former advisor resigned because he met with Hamas. And quite frankly, I mean, these are issues that are defining issues for Americans that Americans need to know, and that Republicans are strong. The Republican candidate right now, John McCain, is strong on, and the Democrats, this Democrat candidate in particular, is not. So it is worth bringing up.
Ed, was Obama maybe being a little defensive about all this today? I mean, President Bush, as Tara said, he certainly didn't mention him by name, and he could have been referring to many people, including former President Carter and many Republicans, even in the Bush administration.
No, I think, Campbell, that this is a major play by the Democrats to defend themselves in the war on terror, defend themselves that they will be aggressive and go after Osama bin Laden, fight terrorism where it's important. I think it was really, by President Bush today, somewhat of a cheap shot on Barack Obama. There's a whisper campaign going on that he's not supportive of Israel. And for President Bush to go over there and to say stuff like this, we all know who he was talking about. And the fact is, Barack Obama has been very clear.
Who was he talking about, Ed? You were saying this was an overt appeal to Jewish voters,
and
yes?
If he was, so what? Even if he was talking to Barack Obama, so what? He makes a point, and it is a legitimate issue. He does have problems with the Jewish voters right now. Barack Obama does. The support among Jewish voters in the Democrat Party has slipped. So certainly it is absolutely legitimate to bring this up. And it's a good question.
So what? So why isn't it fair game?
But it's not, well, it might be fair game in the eyes of the conservatives because they're not in favor of popularity with the American people on this issue. The fact is they are misstating Barack Obama's position on fighting terrorism and his support for Israel. He's not going to appease anybody. There's a huge difference between appeasement and surrender, and there's also a big difference between talking to your enemies and also appeasement.
I think that when you sit down with someone like Ahmadinejad, that is absolute appeasement. I mean, if not appeasement...
No, it's not.
It absolutely
You're not giving him anything. All you're doing is negotiating with him. That's not giving anything.
Listen, but we don't negotiate with terrorist sympathizers. It has been the position of the commander-in-chief not to sit down with terrorist sympathizers. I think that the administration, quite frankly, and others in the administration do meet on a regular basis with folks.
A fair point.
But for the commander-in-chief, it's a wholly different issue.
Let me bring Michael into this. Michael, what's your take?
Well, look, I think, first of all, it's important to point out, I mean, Bush uses the word terrorist. Obama is not talking about, you know, going out to bin Laden's mountain cave and having tea with them. So I think the way Bush frames it is quite misleading. I think actually McCain's attack substantively is somewhat more defensible when he talks specifically about Iran and Ahmadinejad. But listen, Bush's poll numbers are absolutely in the cellar. I mean, Obama would welcome a fight with George Bush. Where it gets complicated is when McCain comes in, and that's not as clean a shot for him. But I think Obama does not mind going head-to-head with George W. Bush, especially when Bush's attack is, frankly, I think, really over the top. He's not talking about negotiating with terrorists in the sense that we think of the 9/11 terrorists, first of all. And second of all, it's just it's a tired theme that Bush has been using for years and years. We heard this before the 2006 elections, and it totally flopped. So I don't think it's, you know, such a clean shot, Bush at Obama. McCain, it's a little different story, but we can talk about that.
Okay, guys, we got to end I should say the panel's going to be here for most of the show, so we're going to pause right there and talk about